Welcome in to another Humankind video here on the Maddish Moose YouTube channel. This one's going to be a little different than our typical Let's Play series. It's going to be one of our review videos. Recently completed a game on the Twitch live streams over at twitch.tv/MaddishMoose, and the settings and the way that this game played out was very unique. And so I want to take you through what ended up being one of the most egregious and most ridiculous games of Humankind ever. Did I pull off a win under the most egregious circumstances? We'll find out at the end. Let's jump into the game. Here we are in game. The setting for this particular game is as follows. Over on the Twitch channel, I had a goal that we hit, and the community was able to choose the settings and context for a game of Humankind that I played. Now, they came up with it was called a community challenge game, and they took the challenge part very seriously. The game they set up for me basically set me up for some of the most challenging conditions that I have ever experienced ever. Now, they did give a little bit of leeway in that they did put, I think the luxuries and the strategics, I think they put on random. So it could have been any of them. We ended up actually with some good settings, although I could not believe the settings when I saw them. Let me give you a look at my land, and then you can tell me whether you think that this was an egregious game of Humankind or not. So here's our starting area. So we started here. The main premise behind this game was it was 9 Humankind level AI and me on a huge Pangea map, basically. It was one continent, no water, 0% water on the map except for the tops and bottoms, because that's just what happens. And it was like duke it out and see who could win. 9 Humankind difficulty AI, no water, no continents, no ocean to separate anybody. And when you do that, the amount of sheer land is monstrous. And we'll look at the settings for the game here in just a moment so you can see what that looked like. But I want you to see our opening area. Not bad, right? Like, we got a really nice river here. Our opening capital is pretty decent, actually. And you'll notice that we have a couple of strategics. That's nice. But watch as we zoom out. Notice what you do not see. And that is, you will not see anywhere a luxury resource. As I zoom out, we're getting really far. We're getting far out. Like this is like the scope of like, when are you going to run into a luxury? We still have not seen a luxury resource on the map. We're going to zoom out further. Ah, there's one. Down in the very bottom corner, I can now see one. I can see a luxury resource. Okay, so that's as far as I can go with showing resources. This is as far as you can go and still see the resources on the map. Here's where I started. There is not a luxury in sight. Thank goodness there are some strategics. But here is the nearest, like kind of the nearest luxury to us. There's one gemstone down here. There's a couple more down here. I couldn't get to those before someone else claimed them. We started to see some luxuries over here. You can see that I claimed in this direction, right? I found luxuries and went to go get them. We ended up grabbing this gold, and then we ended up settling all the way over here because this is where all the luxuries were. And so my empire looks completely disjointed. So we have our main area here where we were, and you'll notice how just epically large everything is because everything is land. There's so much to claim. And I ended up cutting my empire all the way through into here specifically to grab all of the resources because otherwise there was just no way to play the game. You'll notice I cut all the way down into here to grab land and strategics and just again attempting to get towards any sort of resource that I could. It was just a wild game from a strategic or from a luxury resource standpoint, because when you have no luxuries, it is almost impossible to maintain any sort of like FIMS numbers that you're used to, and it's really hard to maintain stability. So let me show you the map settings really quick, because I think that will give you a good kind of indicator of what we were doing here. So we had Humankind difficulty on. There were 9 players in the game. We were playing on a huge map with everything custom. The climate was wet. Land percentage 100. Number of continents random, because it just sets it to that when you set it to that. No new world, obviously, because we weren't playing with that. Island odds few, because again it locks you out of those. And then continent spread obviously was regular because it didn't matter. It's all land, right? So lake odds few but big. Rivers, many, which was nice. Ridges and cliffs, few, so it was easy to traverse the map. You could go places fast, but elevation was steep, so any sort of you're going up and down a lot, but not a lot of ridges and cliffs necessarily. So you could cross the land, but you were almost always going up or down, and it made for interesting battles throughout the time. Strategic resource amount scarce. Again, that was set to random, I believe. Luxury resource amount abundant. I could not believe it upon looking up this game, seeing the abundant category there. I could not believe that the resources were abundant based on the start that I had. There was just nothing. And the reason for that, of course, is because it ended up on clustered resource distribution. So the resources, there were plenty of them. They were just clustered away from me when the game started. And because of the number of players, it was gosh darn impossible to get to them. We did, and it's the only reason we probably were able to salvage the game, because we struggled through the opening several eras. It was a slog when you didn't have those resources. You were inventing all kinds of ways to get stability and to continue building your empire without trading, because the AI wanted nothing to do with me. They were humankind difficulty AI. Granted, I probably didn't have a large enough standing army. I never ended up at war except for one time, which we'll talk about. But the AI wanted nothing to do with me because they wouldn't trade with me because I had nothing to trade. They were like, no, I don't want to sign a trade agreement with you because I have all the resources. You have nothing. Why would I sign a trade agreement? I couldn't get anyone to trade with me for the longest time until I went and got some resources that were valuable to them. And then they were like, oh, okay, we can trade. So because I had no resources to trade, number one, I wasn't getting the stability from the resources. And number two, I also wasn't getting the ability to trade for other luxury resources that were going to boost my stability and my FIMS numbers, right? So, oh man, it was a drag. So here's how this game ended up playing out. And I'll show you kind of the map. It's completely ridiculous. If you'll see my empire here and then how big this map is and how many people there are. This is turn 240. We have many unsettled lands. Like the map is so big when you set it for 100% land on huge that it's just impossible to end up settling everything. You see, like these empires are not small. Like they are not small empires. Look how big Burleigh Empire got. Like this is a huge empire that Burleigh had. Burleigh is in fact the person who got second place in the game. And man, it was just like you can see I was still actively claiming even at the very end of the game. So here's how the game played out. I'll show you kind of the progression, right? So we opened in the Neolithic or nomadic tribe, and we actually ended up in a spot where I realized early on, and at least like stuck around long enough that enough good ones were taken as well, that I kind of knew we were gonna need stability. And so it actually was really handy that the Mycenaeans were still available, because we were able to take the Mycenaeans and build Cyclopean fortresses, which actually are now, after having used them, in my opinion, a very good district. I typically shy away from anyone who's got like a garrison district or a commons quarter district. I just don't find the value there. When you have no luxury resources and you can't establish trade relationships with the AI or with your neighbors, this becomes a really nice way to augment your stability, because you're going to be putting them down anyway. So now you're building garrisons, because you're going to be building garrisons to deal with the stability issues that you're facing. Now you're building a garrison that functions as a maker's quarter. That is a huge bonus, and you'll see some of them that I placed. They're really great. When you can exploit industry because it functions as a maker's quarter with your garrisons, you turn what is normally a very kind of minimal bonus building that is a garrison to boost your stability, boost your fortifications. You turn that into something that is now a production hub for you. It's a great district. So even in the first era, you could actually see, I love this one because it basically, like, it looks like Helm's Deep. Like this reminds me of Helm's Deep, yeah? So we had this mountain range, and we put a Cyclopean fortress in there. It exploited the entire mountain range for us, and the tiles, obviously not the food, but it exploited the industry on this river and on this forest. It was huge. This was a huge, right? 17 stability by the end of the game. We got 5 influence and 20 production from a garrison. right? So we were helping our cities in a really big way because we were struggling. As we expanded, it was almost impossible to do anything because stability issues were a massive problem. So this was incredibly helpful to choose the Cyclopean Fortress. So much so that you'll notice we actually transcended into the Mycenaeans again. And partly that was because we were going so slowly because we were trying to deal with all these issues, right? That we were going so slowly that all of the good cultures from this era got taken. And so it was like, well, do we take one of these kind of so-so cultures that isn't really going to help us too much, or do we just take that 10% fame gain bonus? It turned out to be a very wise decision. Number one, because we could expand and continue to put Cyclopean fortresses everywhere, get that production bonus in our cities right away with the stability bonuses of having a garrison in. But we also needed that 10% fame gain multiplier to catch up, because right away, because the AI was over with all the resources, right? They had luxuries in their territories. They were cruising along. We were not. We were behind from the get-go. In fact, we did not take the lead in this game of Humankind until the final era. In the contemporary era was when we flipped into the lead. We were behind, I think we were in second place for a couple eras, but we were behind the leader the entire game. We never led until the final era. And we needed this catch-up mechanism. So you start to make decisions in Humankind based on the scenarios that you find yourself in. This was one of those options where it was like, you know what? Transcending, particularly early, like from this era, from the ancient era, right, into your next era, the classical era, that is one of your like best times potentially to transcend. Why? Because you get that 10% bonus for all of the rest of the eras, right? If you're transcending like from 4 to 5 or something like that, you're only getting that 10% bonus for a couple eras. When you do it early, you get that 10% bonus across the entire game. Like now all of a sudden you're starting to see some serious gains over the course of time with that 10% bonus. Plus, again, access to that Cyclopean Fortress was huge for us, so we were able to pull that off. Now, once we had done that, we ran into a problem, and that problem became we did not have the influence generation to be able to continue expanding our empire. Because of the sheer size of the map and the fact that you needed to expand out as quickly as possible, and at this point, we had also started to discover, oh, the luxury resources are over here. Well, we now need just a copious amount of influence to be able to go way over here, put a city down, and start claiming land. Because it's so expensive, because it's so far away from our existing land. We tried to kind of claim out to it, but it didn't work. We got cut off by the AI and by a few free peoples, right? So what ended up being necessary is a lot of influence, particularly in that third age. And so what we did was take the Franks, because... Wow, there we go. Take the Franks mainly because of the aesthete ability. Just the ability to generate influence by money, right? Using that aesthete ability to gain influence became kind of the focal point of us playing the Franks. We had also kind of fallen behind in science, and so that got us access to the scriptorium. The Franks are a pretty good medieval era culture because they give you access to the scriptorium, which actually has a little faith on it, which is interesting. Plus you get the science, and they're an aesthete culture, so you get that aesthete ability. So this was pretty dang good for us to be able to snag the Franks and transition into that. That got us the influence generation that we needed for the rest of the game, because we also get that 10% influence. That's the trait that the Franks have. So now we've got that going for us as well, which is really handy, right? It's really handy to be able to have those two things. At that point, we of course ran into food problems, and one of the issues that we had on the map was we actually found some pretty like questionable land throughout. Like we've got just desolate territory in our capital here. We got the rivers were nice, so it was nice. The many rivers kind of saved the land, but you can see there are just pockets here of just not great land to be able to work. We actually ran into some serious food problems, which typically happens about once a game in Humankind, sometimes more than that. We ran into some serious food problems, and so the Maasai became the play. We got access to, of course, the agrarian ability, which allowed us to kind of snag people from other cities and kind of move population around and also take population from other people's cities. But also we got access to that in Kang, which is good for generating food, and they're free place, right? And Kangs are free place and allows you to build off of them. So we're able to pick really nice places in addition to where we were going to put our hamlets. We were able to pick really nice places to put our Nkangs down, grab that additional food from the Nkangs, and use the pastoral prowess. Actually was one of the kickers here too, right? Minus 25% population consumption on all cities. That's actually huge. That's a big number. To have your population only consume 75%, right, of the food they normally do with that minus 25%, that's a big number. And so that saved us in a real big way from a growth standpoint. We could get our population back up again. Didn't have to worry about food so much after we picked the Maasai. Now, at that point, we went into what has actually become probably one of my favorite 1-2 punch combos. If you're playing Humankind and you're behind, if you're not winning when you're about to enter the industrial era in the 5th era, the Persians are a pretty nice go-to. And this is true basically for anybody. I like the Persians pretty much as my top pick in the industrial era. And solely because of the Mighty Works. Minus 25% shared project industry cost and minus 25% on all constructibles industry cost. So you got your shared projects and all your constructibles at minus 25%. That's huge when you get into the space race endgame condition. As you're trying to end the game as quickly as possible and get the fame from those projects, the Persians become very, very potent. And so we decided, let's go with the Persians, because that will allow us to more quickly do the space race projects, which get you pretty big chunks of fame. That was hopefully going to be our catch-up mechanic as well, right, was to get that. Not to mention that the caravanserais are really great from a money standpoint. They weren't particularly awesome for us because we weren't trading as much, because the AI had been very stingy with us. Even after we got some trade routes, we had developed some poor relationships, essentially. And so, but they also count as a maker's quarter. So you're going to get some money and you're going to get that access to exploiting the industry around it as well. So not bad. The caravanserai, excellent if you're trading a whole bunch. If you're not trading, kind of subpar, but did get us access to, obviously, the builders, so we could do Landraiser if we needed to. But the most important thing was the Mighty Works. That took us to a space where we were starting to think about how are we going to catch up. We were still behind, and we had started to invest in some free peoples, right? 1, 2, there's 3, 4. I think we had 5 eventually. I can't remember where our other one was, but we were investing pretty heavily in free peoples. We might have only had 4 or 5. There's 3 there and the 1 there, so that's at least 4. I can't remember if there's a 5th somewhere. We might have lost the 5th at some point, but we were client state of multiple different free peoples. And what that, of course, allows us to choose is the Singaporeans. And this has become a very popular play for me if I am behind in a game of Humankind, which I have been lately because I've been playing really ridiculous challenge games and under egregious conditions. And so I've been behind a lot going into the final era. You'll see that in some other games that'll show off on YouTube as well. But this ability, Center of Attraction, and the key part of it is this: 5% additional fame gain bonus multiplier per client state independent people. 5% on 4, that's 20%. That's a 20% gain on every fame that we're gaining. It's a massive thing to get 20% more fame. So we tack that on with our 10% that we got here. We're at 30% more fame, period. Plus, if you put in, if you go over here and you go to, we didn't even get to nuclear proliferation. If you get to the nuclear fission tech, you can actually unlock another 10%. So we could have gotten that up to 40% fame gain. So there is a serious ability to catch up in a game of Humankind through fame gain bonus multipliers. And the Singaporeans provide the biggest one there is if you have client states. We were able to get that plus 20%. That swung us very quickly once we started gaining stars in the contemporary era into the lead, and we were then able to, using the Persians' ability, very quickly finish the space race in order to snag the win in this game. You'll notice our fame was not that high. 19,100, that's like a decent chunk of fame, but winning the game at 19,000, it's not a lot. You're usually over 20k, at least in my games that I've played. Typically, if it's a longer game, like a more competitive game on Humankind difficulty, you're usually kind of trending in that kind of more 20k realm. So this is a decent number, I think, but the fact that as we're looking at the final standings, that Burley was at 17.5, we had a 15.8. We had some low scores in this game for a Humankind difficulty game. And part of that had to do with the map. In fact, substantially it had to do with the map. I think the AI was slightly confused about the number of, like, the space that they had. And it also had to do with some war scenarios that ended up happening. So what you might notice currently about our status diplomatically is we are currently the vassal of King Awesomeness Dude. This occurred during the shortest war of, like, I've ever had. The war lasted, like, I don't know, it was probably like 10 turns. I mean, there's been shorter wars, but there was a super short war where he started with, I think, must have been full war support. I must have started with very low war support. But what happened was, over here, if you go to the Congress, here on the geopolitical axis right here, the current effect you can read, this is plus 10 war support when an opponent retreats, plus 10 war support increases when winning a battle. This effect, at one point, said something to the effect of, and I can't quote it right now, but it was something to the effect of plus 100% war score, like, multiplier, or something like that. And, again, don't quote me on that, because it was something. It was something that increased war score, and that apparently allowed him, even though I actually won, I think all but one fight. Like, I went on the aggressive when he declared war on me and actually ended up winning some fights. I thought for sure that it was gonna like go pretty well for us. He used some diplomacy stuff, right? He used the diplomacy capabilities to reduce down my war score and then vassalized me, and I didn't even know what was happening. Before I knew it, I was a vassal. And eventually I think I lost these territories right here. These are the ones he got. He got these territories right here from me as part of that deal. And I just ended up not ever declaring war on him. So to answer the question, can you win a game of Humankind as a vassal? 100%. In fact, the person that was my liege finished, 5th place? So that was... I was a vassal for the majority of the game. I think it was probably, I can't remember when I became a vassal. Sometime, I want to say it was sometime in the Maasai times. So probably during the early modern era, I think is when I got vassalized, and I just stuck with it. I just was like, whatever, that's fine. You can have whatever the benefits are of that. And I just kind of wrote it out and I won Humankind as a vassal. Is one of the fun things about Humankind is, even if from a domination perspective, you get conquered, basically. Like, as long as they don't wipe you out completely, if you just become a vassal, great, you're still earning your own fame, and you can just continue on with the game as you would, right? So pretty funny to be able to win a game from the vassal standpoint. I enjoyed doing it just because it was a different thing to do. But the overall kind of plot line for this game, and really something that I'll probably never do again, but it was really interesting to play, was setting the map for the 0% water. Like, you can see the water up here, right? This is the only water, is like basically just the top tiles here. Funnily enough, yes, on our 100% land game, yes, we did build Sydney Opera House, because hilarious. We put a wonder in the water when there's no water, which I thought was funny. So, you know, when there's no water across the map, there's so much land available. But the fact that the the clustered resources on this map with the 100% land, because it clustered them away from where I started, it made this starting location borderline impossible. And I mean, I have never struggled in a game of Humankind like I struggled at the beginning of this game. It was brutal trying to collect the FIMs, trying to collect the stability, trying to balance my cities out. Without having access to any luxury resources at the beginning of the game, it was very difficult to get off the ground and to get running. And so that set us back in like a million different ways, right? Because we're focused on stability while everyone else is growing their empire and pushing science and building up an army. Thank goodness we didn't have any early wars. We actually maintained a very tenuous relationship with Purple, with Icarus over on this side. And then hilariously, Burley got so big that Burley cut all the way up here, went to war with Icarus, took some of Icarus's land. I mean, the geopolitical status in this game was wild because of the map type, right? So my encouragement based off of this is A, make sure there's a little bit of luxuries in your starts in Humankind because it's painful if there's not. And B, the 100% map land on the map was actually kind of fun. I would encourage everyone to try it if you haven't played a game where it's 100% land, no continents, like no water, all of that. It's a really interesting way to play the game. So that's something that I might encourage. Anyway, that is the review of how I won a game of Humankind under the most egregious of circumstances. 9 Humankind level AI on a 100% land Pangea map with no luxury resources in my start, despite the hilarious fact that the luxury resource was actually set to abundant. It sure didn't seem like it for the first 100 turns that I played, because I didn't see any luxuries, and it made the game incredibly hard. But little things you can do to enhance and build upon what you find in the game. And that's one of my favorite parts of Humankind. Each game is different because the situation you find yourself in will dictate picking a different culture, going a different direction, settling in a different way, using your FIMs differently. All of that kind of plays into a game of Humankind. And the beauty of it is it all unloads or unpacks kind of differently as you play the game. And so you really get these choices before you, like which culture to pick based on the scenarios that you find yourself in. This was the first game that I have lost a religion in. I don't think my religion is completely gone. Yeah, my religion is completely gone. I converted to somebody else's religion in order to maintain like diplomatic relations with them. So you experience all kinds of new things when you put yourself in these kind of situations. I wouldn't probably do it again, at least not specifically this way. But the 100% land thing was quite a bit of fun, and I did enjoy it. We came up with some interesting strats to help get around kind of the conundrums that we ended up in. Won the game as a vassal, all of those things. So thank you so much for watching this review video of Humankind under the most egregious of circumstances. It was a fantastic community challenge that the community came up with. If you ever want to come hang out with us live, I play Humankind on Friday nights over at twitch.tv/BanishedMoose. More Humankind content to come, including a very special video that will be released on the anniversary of Humankind on August 17th. So be sure that you're ready to check that out. Hit the subscribe button so you get notified. Make sure the bell is turned on. Thumbs up the video if you like the content. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next week.